All right, welcome back here to Live Impact News. As promised, we have a special guest with us here in studio on this Friday afternoon. Dr. Sonya Lee joins us. And Dr. Lee, you have a number of different titles. You're an author, which is something that we're going to dig into today. You are also a licensed professional counselor, which relates to the book that we're going to talk about and is also just generally something during Mental Health Awareness Month that we would love to talk a little bit about. You're also a Navy veteran and a Norfolk State University graduate. So a lot of different titles and a lot of things that just relate very strongly to what we like to cover here on Live Impact News. So we can start a lot of different places. I think maybe I would like to start with what compelled you to want to become a counselor?
I think struggling with my own mental health and emotional health, and at the time when I was serving in the Navy, the community that I served in, it was kind of frowned upon. So I made a promise to myself that once I got out the Navy, that I wanted to be someone that could help people like me, and to say that, it's okay not to be okay. So, I think this is the best job in the world, to be a counselor, to be that person for others that wasn't available for me during my military service.
Yeah, and filling in that gap that maybe you noticed when you were in the process of your own career, kind of. I'm wondering, when it comes to mental health, obviously this is such a broad question, but are there any notable misconceptions that you would highlight?
Yes, I think that, a lot of people think that if you have issues related to mental health, that something's wrong with you, like you may be broken. No, mental health is no different than your physical health. Something is off. It's your body and your brain's signal to say, hey, we need help. So, I know from my generation, I'm a little over 50, that, there was a stigma with going to get help. I think that, it's changed a lot. Like, it's odd if you don't go get help these days. So I love that for people, that to recognize the importance of mental health and to put it into, I like to say, your overall wellness.
Hmm. And, we sit here in 2026, and there's, as you said, more education, understanding, and awareness of mental health than ever. But there's also such an immense amount of challenges out there in the world for people to try and overcome. When you look at the state of mental health right now, what are you seeing?
I'm seeing that it's getting better. So that is a good thing, that the resources are definitely there. Um, I think that there are also some issues that still exist, as far as, a lot of people are not sure how to go about finding the resources. I can't tell you that every day I get a call or I get a text to say, hey, can you help me find a therapist? Where do I start? It's easy to pick up the phone book and well, we don't use phone books anymore. It's easy to pick up, your phone, and to Google to say, hey, can I get a orthopedic, or can I get something for any other health issue? But where do I start to work on my mental health? I think we still lack as far as education. That's where I'm going with that. It's important to know, are there different types of providers that are there? One of the things that I really love is Psychology Today. I send numerous people there to say, because you may want a female counselor, or you may want someone that has a religious background. So I need to find someone that's a good fit for me. And sometimes when you do that, the first time you go to a counselor, that person may not be the right fit for you. Their values and their outlook on life may not align with what you have. So if I had to say that anything lacked, I wouldn't say the resources, because the resources are definitely there, but how do I tap in and obtain those resources? I think we still lack, as I want to say, as a community, but what worldwide in that arena.
And once you do get tapped in and you do kind of figure out, okay, here's how I go about finding a counselor or finding a therapist or finding someone who can try to help me, how do you know that you have found the right person? If you go through a couple of meetings or sessions and you're like, I just don't know if this is working for me. It's hard for me to tell. What should potential patients be looking for to know that they have found the right person to kind of to lean on?
I think that you found the right counselor and you found the right provider where you can go in there and you can pay them for what you need them for, to provide guidelines and guidance on to help you come to what your issue is. You don't need anybody to. One thing about a great counselor is that we don't give advice. We help you realize what your issue is. And sometimes going to counseling, it doesn't mean that you need a diagnosis. Like, you don't, doesn't mean that the first time you sit and meet with me that I'm going to diagnose you with depression, anxiety, or that you're bipolar. My job is to kind of help you. Let's talk about how we got here. Tell me about your childhood. Tell me about your daily life interactions. And one of the things I like to say is that I don't want to know what's wrong with you. I want to know what happened to you. Why are you here? What are your expectations? So I think that's very important when you find a great counselor. And, it should be a good fit where I can come in there and I can be myself. I can be vulnerable. I want to feel safe because I'm sharing my deepest, trauma with you. I'm sharing my deepest concerns. Do I feel safe with you to help me unpack this?
Yeah, and that's, from my perspective, that all sounds very, very challenging from your point of view. For the counselor to go, as the patient's trying to find the right counselor, you guys have such a big job that you have to accomplish, and creating an environment where you can both share that trauma while also feeling safe and vulnerable, to me sounds so challenging. That's why you guys are the pros and the experts. And I'm wondering, for you, what do you find to be the biggest challenge? And that doesn't even have to be negative, but the biggest challenge in your job day to day.
When a client comes and they sit before me, I want to make sure that they understand that you are sharing some of your deepest thoughts and secrets with me. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to judge you. I'm going to do what I'm trained to do, identify what your issue is, come up with a treatment plan, and be able to get you to whatever we determine your treatment goals are. So that's the first thing. And sometimes it's hard when you're sitting there with a client and they're telling you their story, they're sharing their issue, and you're like, oh, I can relate to that, but it's not your issue. So you have to kind of be very careful with that to say, this is this person's journey. What can I do as a professional to make sure that they get the help and to be able to unpack what the issue is and come up with a plan to work that out? But one of the things that's also important to me is how do I help? This is a phrase that I use all the time. How do I help them to stay the course? Meaning to, if you have counseling every week, you need to come to counseling every week. It's no different than like if it was a medical issue. How do I make them understand that their mental health drives everything else in their life?
Yeah, and you talk about the journey, and that journey starts with childhood. And you very specifically have written a book to help with the managing of mental health and emotions when you're a kid, which is something that when you're a kid, you don't have that self-awareness so often. And so it might be difficult to kind of process those things. Can you tell us a little bit about The Volcano Within, the book that you've written? You've brought a couple of copies here. Feel free to, hold that up. It's a beautiful looking cover. I love the volcano, and it gives that feeling of, the science project where you've kind of created this in the classroom. So what inspired you to write this book, and what is it about? What will people find when they crack it open?
So The Volcano Within is a book about anger. what inspired me to write this book, I know I look young, but I'm a grandmother.
Yeah.
I have 4 grandsons, and they range from age 9 to 10 months. And my 2 older grandsons, right now they're 9 and they're 8. So about a year ago, they both were struggling with behavior issues. And they were really going through some tough times in their lives. New school, new home, their parents were getting a divorce. So the second to the oldest one was getting suspended from school. He was fighting, he was acting out. And I remember he and my daughter came over one day, and they both were just overwhelmed. And I was a little overwhelmed too, because I was like, he's suspended again? Like, this is the 3rd time this week that he's gotten in trouble. So I said, what are you feeling? What are you experiencing? And he said, I'm angry. And I was like, well, what does that feel like? He was like, I don't know. So I know that emotions can kind of get trapped in your body too. I said, point to where it hurts. So he pointed to his stomach, and he said, it's trapped right here. And it like literally broke my heart, because I'm like, wow, I'm a whole adult and I have emotions, and I, sometimes struggle with finding the words to let someone know what's going on. So at that moment, I'll go back to something I said earlier. I didn't want to know what was wrong with him from a standpoint of what he did. Like, I didn't need to go back through the day's events. What I felt at that moment, I wanted to know what happened to him. And it's something out there that's called adverse childhood experiences. Adverse childhood experiences, this is about 10 different things, but I'll give you 2 of the 3 things that they were struggling with. They were struggling with being in a new environment. They were struggling with their parents going through divorce. And that was the biggest thing for my grandson. So visually in my mind, I was like, wow, this is like a volcano. It's like having the pressure of an emotion, but that emotion has to go somewhere. So anger is what we refer to as a surface emotion. And beneath, so what we see is the lava. We see the hitting, we see the yelling, we see the pushing or whatever. But what we don't see is what's underneath that. Being scared, being embarrassed, being worried, disappointed, hurt. So he was only expressing what he could in the way that he knew how. So I went and I researched the internet, and what we refer to this as social emotional support, right? I saw a couple books out there, but nothing on the level from age 5 to 11. So that was my inspiration behind writing The Volcano Within.
Yeah, and you talk about anger and how, is it fair to say that anger is a manifestation of all those other emotions? Anger is a way to get out the true hurt that you kind of are feeling. It manifests itself as anger, but that's merely a symptom of the greater problem.
It is. And, sometimes we think anger is a bad thing.
Right.
Anger doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. I kind of look at it as a red flag, like, hey, there's something that's going on with me. And that's why it's important when you see children express this, what happened to you? What was occurring at that time when you became angry? And like anything else in life, we have to learn to manage things. So managing the emotion was very important for me to make sure that he had tools, and that was another driving force behind writing the book.
So you're a parent or a kid, but you're a parent and you see the anger and you are able to understand through some of your advice, okay, here's what he's feeling, hurt, sadness, frustration. Here's why he's feeling those things, because his parents are going through a separation. Now, in order to figure out how to actually manage all of that so that when it comes out, it doesn't come out in a way that leads to fighting and a suspension, but it comes out in a healthier way. What's the next step? How do you manage these things in a healthy way?
So one of the things I love about the book is that I suggest that parents have a toolbox. So you were spot on. There was an emotion. We identified that emotion. Now I need to understand where that emotion came from. Now, what do we do with it? Having, I call it an anger management toolbox, some things that you can put in there. You can put like coloring books. You can put fidget spinners in there. You can put stress balls. Something that the kid likes. I say make it age appropriate. Something else, like with my grandson, he was hitting people. You can't go around hitting people. So let's get a punching bag. Let's get a pillow. If you need to physically get that anger out, let's do those. But we have to do it in a healthy way. Something else that I love, and I address it in the book, is dancing and music. Find a way to ground yourself. Find a way to connect with something positive, right? I also suggest to parents that you do something in your house called a calming corner. It could be a small space in their room. I like to say take it somewhere where it's out of their normal environment. Find a corner in the dining room that you don't use. Put a beanbag there. Put a feelings chart there. Put a emotions wheel there. Put something that they can touch, something that, like Play-Doh, something that helps ground them.
So you're creating an environment where you are making it easy for them to let those emotions out in a healthy way.
And in a safe environment.
In a safe way. And it even, when you talk about the corner and the wheel and things like that, it even seems like it's enhancing their ability to communicate these things. And so maybe that will, as they grow, they'll even have a better foundation of how do I communicate with mom and dad? How do I communicate with my teacher or my classmates? So I love all of that advice. I want to go back to the toolbox, and you mentioned a few things. You mentioned a coloring book, a fidget spinner, stress balls, and even went to you could put on some music and try to connect with that. I'm wondering, with the way our world is now, where do you fall on a phone or an iPad as a part of that toolbox? Would you advise against that, or could that work?
I would say it depends on the child.
Okay.
Like for my grandsons, they love YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as soon as they get home, they want to go to something with YouTube. So I encourage them to help me or teach me what they need. So if you were angry today and you can't put it in words, let's go to YouTube and find something that kind of mirrors what you were going through today. Mm. There's also different apps that, you can use. What I like the old school charts that have the smiley faces or whatever, because you may not be able to put the words on the emotions wheel to say, I'm feeling scared, I'm feeling hurt or whatever, but you can point to this little frowny face and say, I'm sad. And that opens up a door for me to say, well, you're sad. Mm-hmm. What does sadness look like to you? What does it feel like to you? Why are you sad? Next time you're sad, what would you like to do when you're sad? Is it something you want to talk about? Do you need to be left alone mm-hmm. for a moment? Those type of things. And another thing with that is for parents to have words of affirmation. Encourage your kid to say, you're angry, and we're struggling with anger. Before they get out of the car in the morning, remember, you're great, you're smart, you remember to use your words, your emotions are okay. Don't hit, you talk to them, you have that dialogue. So what that does is that the next time that they are feeling these emotions, you kind of led on to, they're open to coming to talk to you about it. And that's the thing, what I like about the Volcano Within, it encourages you to get it out.
How does a parent strike that balance of if I have a kid who has used violence against a classmate? There is that fine line of, I want to make sure that my son or daughter wants to talk to me and knows I love them and can use positive reinforcement to solve these problems, while also making sure that they truly and firmly understand that what they did is not okay. The balance there.
Great question. So behavior management is one thing. If you're constantly doing this, there's consequences to your behavior. For my grandson, you hit someone, you're going to in-school suspension. That's your consequence. That's the consequence at school. But when you get home, I can't reward you for going on your iPad because you did something bad or you got angry. Anger is an emotion that we experience all the time. I can be driving in traffic, someone cuts me off. I'm not going to go follow that person and, rear end them. It happened in the moment. I have to learn to let it go because the consequences to me doing that would be me going to jail. So there's consequences. Just because you have feelings and you're feeling angry, it doesn't give you the right or the permission to continue within that emotion. So that's why it's so important to understand why you're doing that, what you experience. So being angry with the toolbox, use your tools. Use what we've given. If those tools aren't working, let's reassess. What worked for my 9-year-old doesn't work for my 3-year-old because my 3-year-old grandson doesn't understand that hitting is bad. For him, the hitting is just, I just want to be noticed. So as a parent, you have to constantly reevaluate the age, the attention span, where you're at, different types of things for different environments.
We talk about those ages and attention spans, and when you have those younger kids, mom and dad are best friends most of the time, right? And they want to spend all their time with you, and they have spent all their time with you, and then you transition into that high school phase, into 15, 16, 17, where all of a sudden, for most kids, for most families, the last thing I want to do is hang out with my parents. And so another fine line thing, right, where if a parent is looking at their 16-year-old and all of a sudden that 16-year-old is not talking to them as much, and hey, how was school today? Good. And that's that. And, maybe they're a little moody, and trying to decipher, okay, a lot of times they're just teenagers, versus making sure that your kid, your son, your daughter is not dealing with serious mental health struggles. How do you investigate while also making sure that you're not overstepping and just giving them room to be teenagers?
I would say pay attention to any changes. If they're not doing things that they normally will do, pay attention to the way they dress. Okay, like if you have someone that's really into the way they look every day, they make sure that their hair is good, they make sure that they have on the best outfit, the best sneakers, and then all of a sudden they're just wearing sweats and a ponytail every day. So now that their appearance has changed. They're not hanging out with their friends anymore. They may be social. They seem a little too withdrawn. They're not communicating with you with simple things. So I would say keep the door of communication open and just be straight up, be a parent to say, is there anything that you're struggling with that I can help you with? And if something seems off and they don't know how to answer that, make them an appointment. Make them an appointment to say, hey, they say nothing's wrong, but I'm the parent and I'm the one from the outside looking in, and I just want to do some preventive maintenance here. I want to make sure that they know that if they can't talk to me, that you're the professional. Here's some resources. Here's some support groups or whatever. So as a parent, that's our job to make sure that we are paying attention and to give them what they need. So it's the same concept as a toolbox, but it's just on a higher level.
Yeah, and then you transition from being a teenager, you go through college, and now you get out into the professional world. And maybe you have learned how to communicate your emotions, and you have gotten through whatever may have been sort of a teen angst phase, or some of the mental health struggles that afflict people in high school and college, and everything that comes with not having as much confidence with your peer group, or the pressures of school and things like that. You've moved out of that, and maybe you're a professional and you're a little bit more set in your social life, and you're comfortable with that, and you're a little bit more set in your family life and your professional life. And what I have noticed maybe with some of my peers is all of a sudden you start to pay attention to the whole world, and maybe watch our station or other local news stations, and we're reporting on things that are important and critical to pay attention to, but they are heavy and they are difficult, both here locally and when you look at the globe. For people who are starting to experience mental health struggles just by the pure nature of getting a greater understanding of how difficult the world can be, how do you suggest dealing with that? And being able to still, I'm going to pay attention, I'm going to know what's going on, but I'm also going to make sure that I am good and I am healthy at all times, because it can wear on you.
It definitely can.
Yeah.
And I would say the same thing. Recognize that it is too much and figure out why it's too much for you. Wave the flag and say, hey, I need help. I don't know if this is a normal feeling, because what's normal? What may be normal to you may be not so normal to me. But the key thing is it feels heavy. I just need somewhere to lay it without judgment. Talking to your peers around here, you guys are experiencing the same thing. But going to a mental health provider, they may give you a different way to look at it. And not only a different way to look at it, but a way to handle it when you're in the moment. You're on the news, breaking news comes. Wow, you just mentioned the ship that's coming back. What is it like for me to be able to, I'm just saying, if I was a news professor, to cover that for 11 months. And I know somebody that's on the ship, or one of my colleagues' spouse is on that ship, and I have to hear that story every day. It's better to take that to the professional and say, hey, may not be anything wrong. I may need someone just to listen. And with the professionals, with us listening, we could say, hey, maybe you may be experiencing some anxiety here. Maybe so we don't get the diagnosis as depression. Maybe you get out and you get some fresh air. Maybe you go ride your bike. Maybe you go for a hike. Those type of things. So just ways to, I'll say, to not get trapped in that.
Got that balance.
Right.
We've talked about. Okay, well, this has been wonderful. I've really appreciated having you here. Is there anything we haven't brought up that you think is important to discuss?
I just really appreciate the opportunity, because it's Mental Health Month. And sometimes when we think mental health, the term is so heavy that we often forget that children have feelings too. We were once all children. And as adults, sometimes we don't know how to express those. So with the Volcano Within, it's just a great tool to be able to use to help kids with that. And remember that the toolbox that's mentioned in the book is just a start. Build it, switch it up when you need to, but develop your own toolbox as parents.
Very good. And can we end on the cover? I do want to dig a little deeper into the illustration here, because there's a bunch of little details going on. Who was your illustrator, and then how did you come up with this? This is such a wonderful cover here. It does kind of make me want to crack it open. And you've got a lot of concern from the kids on the left, but then he's kind of into it over here on the right. I like the juxtaposition there as well.
So the cover, that's definitely supposed to be me.
Yeah.
So, as the grandma, and then the 3 grandsons.
Those are the grandsons.
Those are the grandsons.
Oh, that's great. Now, how do they feel about being on the cover? Are they excited about this?
They love it.
Yeah.
They love it. Actually, the one that I actually wrote the book for, his birthday is May 30th, and he asked for the book as a gift.
Oh, wow.
What I love about the cover, and I was very intentional with the cover, was that the location of it is in the kitchen. At my house, the kitchen is the focal point of where our family gathers. So that is an opportunity when you're in the kitchen and you're just getting ready to eat dinner. Hey, anything new happened at school today? You experience any new emotions? And with the Volcano, I love the fact that they're excited, that one looks confused, the other one is excited to participate in it, because what I wanted to highlight there was that you may be experiencing the emotion as an individual, but it normally affects the whole entire family. So be open as a family to discuss these emotions and to see how everyone else processes it. So I was very, with my illustrator, I wanted the expressions on the face to be different.
Yeah.
And I'm holding my finger up. That's another detail that was intentional. Because in the classrooms, there's usually a sign. Like for one of my grandsons, they have red, green, and yellow as a way to take a time out. So with me holding my finger up, it's a moment to say, hey, pause, and actually allow yourself to feel that.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I just love how much thought you put into it, and I think it speaks to how much thought you put into the book itself, and that's why I think it is such a helpful tool to have. So we appreciate you joining us, Dr. Lee. This has been wonderful, and you've been very patient with us. You've hung out here with us for quite some time now. So thanks for sticking around, and hopefully we'll see you down the line for the next book.
Awesome. Thank you.
Dr. Sonya Lee, everybody. Again, so many titles, right? A Navy veteran, an author, a counselor. She does a lot, and she was nice enough to spend some time during that busy schedule with us here on this Friday afternoon.